Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, some more updates. Well, on last Tuesday's episode of the show, I brought you a set of 5 updates. And for those of you who are regulars of the program, I'm pretty sure you had an idea that there was a part 2 coming with a second set of 5. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you the part 2 of the update for this 6 months. And, well, you know what? Why don't I stop talking? Really? You didn't even let me finish saying talking. Okay, I'll stop talking. I'll get to the updates. Well, it was actually Christmas Day of 2018, and I brought you this show. And while not very popular with the woodworking community, it has received a huge audience as far as people who are in the music community. There are plenty of people that have roll-in drum kits, and the hi-hat pedal, after a certain period of time, just stops working. The actuation on the hi-hat will no longer allow you to give it a tightly closed hi-hat or any variation in between. It's either open or nothing. Now on the show, I showed you how that was repairable, and by the rubber actuator inside that makes contact with the strip and blah, 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 you can place slices in that to soften that rubber up and to get your working hi-hat pedal back. Basically, the rubber over time hardens and it doesn't flex as much as it should. So by placing slots in that or slices in it, you can soften it up a bit more, give it a little more flexibility, and it puts your hi-hat back to working order. Now, a lot of people have been asking me about the longevity of that. And I'm going to tell you that here it is now at the end of 2021, and this thing is just starting to act up again. So I have gotten about 2.5 years out of this repair. What's happening now is the same as what was happening before. You have to put excessive pressure on the pedal in order to get a closed hi-hat sound. I am going to try to repair it again, deepen up those cuts a little more, try to get my flexibility back. But after 2.5 years, I think it's time to buy a new actuator for the pedal. Now that actuator at the time, back then when I repaired it 2.5 years ago, was $20 US from Roland. Not an expensive part, but you know what? I was trying to repair it and the repair worked, so that's why I brought it to you here on the show. Bottom line is, I will try to repair it again, but I've gotten 2.5 years out of it. And you know what? If I have to, for the sake of getting my hi-hat back to working order when I'm drumming, I'll put out the 20 US and get myself a new actuator. But for those that were asking, so far 2.5 years out of this repair, and it's just starting to act up now. Well, I believe it was January 8th of this year, 2021, that I brought you this project. And it was the beginning of a series on making my router table cabinet. Now, I've had quite a few people ask me, how does the dust collection work in this setup that you've done? And I have to tell you that I have never ever seen a router table setup for dust collection that was 100%. I have never seen one that worked perfectly. And for someone like me, if you accidentally forget to turn your dust collection on, it doesn't do anything at all. But what I want to do today to answer your question, I don't want to tell you about it. I don't want to talk about it. What I want to do is I want to do an experiment. I want to clean out the inside of the cabinet. I'm going to set up the dust collection. We're going to run some pieces through it, and I'll show you exactly how the dust collection works. Now, I want you to keep in mind, no dust collection on a router table is 100%. There's too much air blowing around. The RPM of the bit is too high, throwing material around. None of them are perfect. But let me show you what this one does. Well, what I have here is I've set the router table up to do some jointing. And jointing can be a messy process. inside the cabinet, you can see here in the little screen, I have a camera set up in there. At this moment, I can't see what it's filming, but hopefully it's going to show you what kind of dust is going around inside that cabinet. Either way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on, hit my dust collection, and I'm going to run this through for a couple passes. This is a 3/4 inch thick walnut, and I'm going to joint the one side of it. I'm not going for a perfect edge. I'm going to make dust. That's what my that's basically what my goal is here. So let's get this turned on and see how we make out. Now hopefully you can see the amount of sawdust that's in that cabinet. Hopefully it's showing on camera. Doing some edge jointing on 3/4 walnut, making as many passes as what I did, can take a fair bit of material off there. And well, you know what? I'm pretty happy with how much is not in the cabinet. So for those of you who asked how well it works, hopefully this is a demonstration for you that you can see that, you know what, the way that I set it up, the dust collection is quite adequate for your home shop. Well, on March 17th of 2020, I brought you a fun little show that was showing you rock tumbling. My wife and I had got a little hobbyist rock tumbler, and we used the grits that came with it and polished rocks. It was a load of fun. We really enjoyed doing it. So what can you update about rock tumbling? Well, basically, every year when we're on vacation, my wife is always looking for sea glass. And if you don't know what sea glass is, well, sea glass is basically pieces of glass. It can be any color, green, brown, white, whatever color you want. And what happens is it somehow ends up in the bottom of the ocean, and natural currents turn and tumble and twist and turn that piece of glass with its sharp edges, and they basically bash it against the rock bottom and the silt of the sea, and eventually it washes up on shore however many years later, and it's a smooth piece of frosted glass of whatever color, and they're really quite beautiful. This sea glass is really nice. So the update here is that my wife has started creating her own sea glass that she uses in her crafts. And all she does, uses the tumbler just like she would with the rocks, like I demonstrated in the show. I'll post the link to that down below. But she uses the tumbler with some water and some sand. She just gets the sand from a local playground. You only need like a cup of it. So she'll scoop up a cup of sand, throw it in a sandwich bag, bring it home, throw it in her tumbler, and tumble this glass. And it really turns out nice. It takes away all those sharp edges. Now, and frosts it really nice too, I might add. Now, you can use the grits the proper grits, which are much harder than the glass, for wearing that down and that sort of thing, and they turn out gorgeous. But my wife doesn't want to use up her grits. She wants to just use sand and be a little more frugal with her grit and save that for the stones. But either way, it's just an update for you that if you did get into rock tumbling and you want to try something a little different, you can try tumbling glass. She brings the bottle or whatever out to the shop. I wrap it up in rags, put it in a bag, and smash it with a hammer, basically. Of course, eye protection, all that jazz on to make sure that we don't get any shards. But she then tumbles the glass to get this beautiful stuff. And she makes really cool stuff with it. So there you go. If you had ventured into the rock tumbling world, I guess we'll call it, don't stop at rocks. Try yourself some glass to make yourself some of these cool crafts. Well, March 23rd of this year, 2021, I brought you the installation of my Wixie digital readout for my table saw fence. And I did say that once I got a chance to use it a little bit, I would report back to you with what I thought. So that's what we're going to talk about in this section of the update. You know what? Let's head over to the table saw. Well, as much as I love this digital readout, I find that I am spending an awful lot of time having to calibrate it. Right now I have the saw, I don't know if it's showing on the film here, but I have it set to 0. I have it so that it is tight to the blade, and I did not turn on the readout. But if I turn it on, now I'm out 0.4 already. I haven't done anything. So by pushing the calibration button, I can then reset it back to 0 and I'm fine. But I honestly find that after a couple cuts, this thing blows out of whack way more than what it should. Let me just say, like, it works well. There's nothing wrong with the way it works. But I just find that before any time that I need to make a cut, before I make that cut, I have to bring it back to 0 and check it to make sure that it is actually reading at 0 so I get proper measurements. Now, the instruction manual does say that it could be caused by moving your fence faster than, I think it's a foot a second or something like that. But I don't do that. So there's one issue eliminated. It also says that it could be due to static. Now, I've tried grounding out the dust collection system, and I may try to ground out the saw itself, but I mean, it quite often goes out by 0.2 or 0.4. It's usually a division of 2, like 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, and you'll have to recalibrate it to 0. So I'm not saying that the thing doesn't work well, because it does. It works really well. What I'm saying is, if you get one of these, be prepared that you're going to be setting it to 0 and zeroing out this gauge a lot. Well, on March 16th of this year, 2021, I brought you the Jessam Clear Cut Table Saw Guides. What do I think? I've had some time to put these through their paces. Now, I will tell you that if you do a lot of small work, these aren't really for you. They just won't work for your application. I would say anything that you're ripping to be 2 inches or wider, they might be more up your alley. But what do I think of these things? I love these things, honestly. They are fantastic. I have absolutely 0 complaints about the Jessam Clear Cut Guides. Although, you know what, backing up to the last clip about the Wixie digital readout, I may have given you the impression that, you know, I'm disappointed with it. I'm not disappointed. I guess I didn't expect to be resetting it that often. But it still works fantastically. But let me say with the Jessam guides, those magnetic hold downs that I put on there to keep them in place so that I can move it out of the way if I need it, that was just brilliant. Setting them up, easy, quick, flawless. I love the way that they pull the stock into the fence. They hold everything down. I love the way that they hold the stock beyond the blade. That is one of my favorite things. And in fact, with someone like me that doesn't have an outfeed table, I think I need to come up with one for an update on a show. But for me that doesn't have an outfeed table, when you're ripping that piece, it's nice to have it held at the end of the table there. It's not flopping off at the end. You don't have to worry about it because the cut guide is going to hold it. The bottom line here with these Jessam clear cut table saw stock guides, pricey? Heck yeah, they're very pricey. But I love them. I love them. I'd spend the money again. I really would. They have been a total asset to that table saw. And when you add those clear cut guides with the Wixie output and all that jazz, you get one heck of a wicked setup. Now all I need is an outfeed table. And there you have it. Update show number 2 with another 5 updates for you from previous shows. Guys, not every show can be a winner. Not every product can be 100% perfect. Not every project can be that awe-inspiring moment. But with these updates, hopefully, if you guys are looking at an older show and you want to try a project, if you combine that with the update, you can change things to basically avoid mistakes that I may have made during the project or with the product. Now, I don't want to discourage anybody here from the Wixie readout. Resetting it like that is not that big of a deal. The product still works as advertised and it still works really, really well, especially if you need to do repeat cuts. It's just I didn't expect to have to calibrate it that often. It's basically, if I was using the table saw all day, I would have to calibrate that 5 or 6 times during the day because, you know, it somehow jumped 0.2 or jumped 0.4. It's no big deal, really. What does it take to put it back to 0 and push a button to reset? It really takes nothing to get the accuracy and the repeatability. Now with things like the glass tumbling, guys, that's a lot of fun. That really is. And if you use your imagination, the products or the projects that you could make are just phenomenal. But either way, it's been a lot of fun bringing these updates to you. I hope that you enjoy these updates because it's really an important part to the show to bring those projects or those show episodes full circle, where you get their beginnings, you get their end product, and then at the end you get the update to see their longevity. It basically pulls everything together, and you know what? It's what makes my show tick. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. We have a lot of fun here every Tuesday and Friday. We've got a great audience that makes some great comments down below, and I hope that you're going to consider becoming a part of that. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed today's updates. I hope that you find these update shows informative, and if not, I hope you find them to be a little bit fun. But, you know, honestly, guys, I hope that you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesday.